Americans have increased their credit card debt, and it's a really bad sign. But let's get into the story. So 42% of Americans have racked up more credit card debt since COVID-19 began, but these tips can help get that under control, according to CNBC. So COVID-19 has triggered unprecedented financial challenges for many individuals and families. Now, one survey shows just where many of them are feeling the pinch, and it's their credit card balances. So Bankrate.com finds that 42% of U.S. adults with credit card debt have increased those balances since the COVID-19 pandemic began in March 2020. So the company's online survey was conducted in early September and included 2,400 adults, 1,297 of whom had credit card debt. Of those whose debts increased, 47% said it was directly caused by the pandemic. It does go to show how widespread and persistent of a problem credit card debt can be, said Ted Rosman, senior industry analyst at Bankrate.com. Admittedly, while many Americans have seen their credit card balances balloon, others have been able to whittle down those debts since the onset of COVID-19. Overall, credit card balances are down significantly according to the latest Federal Reserve data. But Bankrate.com survey results highlight how those financial improvements have not been shared by households equally, Rosman said. Moreover, once you're in credit card debt, it can be hard to get out, and the reason is the average annual percentage rate is more than 16%. Technically, I believe the average annual percentage rate is more like 27 or 29%. It is so disgusting. So the survey found 54% of adults who carry credit card balances from month to month, and 50% of those people have been in credit card debt for at least a year, which is scary when you really think about it. So it does tend to be a long-term systemic kind of thing, Rossman said. And the average person with credit card debt owes $5,525, and by making only the minimum payments, they'll be in debt for about 16 years and pay more than $6,000 in interest, Rossman said, which means you're actually paying close to $12,000 in total after 16 years if you only did the minimum payments. And this is the reason why, if you do use a credit card, which I do not suggest people to do, if you do decide to use a credit card, you have to pay off your balance in full every single month. And really the way that we recommend it is that if you use a credit card, you put money onto that credit card, meaning you pay it off right after you spent on it. Not at the end of the month, right? That day, a few minutes after you walk out of the store, right? When you get back into your car, you go into your phone and you pay off that expense, right? Or you prepay it. And the reason why you want to do this is because we are human creatures. We are not perfect, and we are going to forget about it. And then we're going to end up being like, oh my God, I now have a credit card balance, right? And a lot of people do not really think of it in that way. People think that there's no big deal if I just use a credit card. But the thing is using a piece of plastic or metal, depending on whatever type of credit card you got, it makes spending easier, right? The easier it is for you to spend money, the easier it is for you to overspend, and the easier it is for you to also forget, right? Because let's put it another way, right? Spending $100 on a credit card, you won't even really think about it. Spending $100 with a $100 bill, that's a whole nother story, right? Because the act of you having to give someone your $100 bill brings up a whole nother set of emotions and pulls of basically like, why am I giving this person $100, right? And that's really the mindset you really need to have when you use credit cards. And the majority of the population should not be using credit cards, right? And by the majority of the population, I'm talking like nearly 50+%, right? Because think about it. What they just said about in their survey, 54% of adults carry credit card balances from month to month, okay? That's over half. So if that were to be the case of this survey, if we're to use this for all of America, that means 54% of 330 million people, basically, roughly, carry a credit card balance, right? And there's always going to be people saying like, oh, they could do like the credit card churning, we could do the points, we could do the cash back, but that's for like a tiny sliver of the population that is actually going to game the system to the point where they could actually benefit from it. It is such a sliver of a percentage of the population that could pull something like that off, that in like 99.99% of the cases, it's better to just completely avoid it, right? And that's the thing that you really got to understand for those that listen to this or stumble upon this in the future. You really got to understand that the biggest factor of destroying your finances, of destroying your future of like retirement, destroying your future of living a more financially free life to where you could go to the grocery store and not care about how much you're spending, is debt, right? Debt is the greatest barrier to you in terms of having basically a financially successful life, right? At the very least, a very financially free life. And a lot of people downplay the importance of having all that stress off of you, right? Like if you have no debt, if you had none of these like interest payments that you had to pay every single month, the amount of cash flow that you would end up having every single month would be insane, right? And these types of debt, specifically like credit card debt, these are things that could actually prevent you from no longer living paycheck to paycheck, right? Some people are literally in the position of living paycheck to paycheck simply due to the debt that they have on their credit cards, because they could barely even afford paying more than the minimum payment on their credit card balance. So the good news is that the economic recovery moves forward. Credit card companies are once again starting to offer 0% balance transfer deals that had dried up earlier in the pandemic, he said. So those offers can let borrowers pause their interest for up to 20 months while they attack those debts. Typically, you need a credit score of at least 700 to qualify for one of those deals. In addition, you need to make monthly payments on time in order to hang on to that 0% rate. Now, here's another thing to really understand, right? This is actually a decent method to paying off your debt, right? But you have to be very careful with this, right? So what I mean by this, a lot of times you might have like 3 credit cards open at different interest rates, right? With different balance amounts, right? Let's say that you got like 10,000 on one at like 27% interest. You have like 5,000 on another one for like 16% interest. And then you got like 5,000 on another one for like, like 21% interest for the annual percentage, right? And you might end up getting an offer from possibly even your own bank saying like, hey, we see that you have these different credit cards. Well, here's an offer for you for transferring all those cash balances, all those balances on your credit cards or those 3 cards, put it into one card for 0% interest for 20 months, right? Like, that's not uncommon to see. And if you end up stumbling upon this, you might have seen that and you were probably tempted to go and do that, right? Now, again, that is a route that you could take, but you should only go that route if you're going to pay that off in a year, within that time frame. What I mean by this, if you can fully pay off your credit card debt within the time frame of the offer, that is the only time you should really go and do something like this. The reason for that, because eventually it's going to have an annual percentage and you're probably going to end up paying a lot more in terms of like minimum payments if you were to just hold on to that credit card balance at the end of it. Like, they're not stupid. These like companies, these banks that offer this offer, they're not stupid. The majority of people who take their offer ends up having more debt onto their credit card, so that they end up getting hit with a very high annual percentage rate at the end of it. And this is such a massive balance because it's just going to be insane. Like the minimum payment is going to be insane, and you don't want to be in that situation. So it's better to only do this if you know, based off the numbers that you calculated, that you could, based off your income, pay off this credit card debt in full by the end of this offer, right? Within that time frame. If you can do that, then it's actually worth it to go and do something like this. If you cannot, then it's not worth it to go and do something like this, because then it's going to be even a bigger hassle at the end of the offer. So you got to keep that in mind. Some people are just going to like automatically try to go and like get the 0% interest and like try to like transfer their money back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No. What you have to do is really break down the numbers and see, can I pay this off within this offer? Is that a for sure thing? And if it is, I'm going to go do it, pay it off, have no of these extra like interest rates, like fees, right? So that I'm paying purely on the principal of the debt, meaning I'm actually like tossing $500 into the debt every single month. And that's actually the amount that's going to drop the debt. So that's the thing that you should really think about. Keep that in mind. Now, if you want to learn how to get out of debt and master your money, go check out 40inbox.com, because, again, having debt is a massive burden to your financial success.